The boards smelled like rot when she pulled them from the dumpster behind the creamery, but Vera Hollins knew better. Wood that old, wood that weathered, wood that dark with years of milk, fat and culture, that was not garbage. That was legacy. She carried them to her truck in the pre-dawn cold of northern Wisconsin, 4 maple planks that weighed almost nothing but held everything, and when Dennis Talbot saw her loading them, he laughed from the loading dock. "Take that junk, you earned it." She did not answer. She set the boards flat in the truck bed, covered them with a tarp, and drove away from the only job she had worked in 11 years without looking back. Dennis kept the name, kept the awards, kept the contracts, and thought she left with nothing. He did not understand fermentation. He did not understand microbiology. He did not understand that what made his cheese worth winning anything was not written on paper. It was living in those boards. And without them he had a recipe that would never taste right again. Before we continue, remember that this is still a small channel, and I could really use your support. Please like the video and subscribe. It's free and it helps more than you know. Vera Hollins had been a lab technician before the divorce, worked in pharmaceutical quality control outside Milwaukee, made decent money, owned a small house, had a retirement account. Then her husband left, the house sold for less than they owed, the account split down the middle, and she found herself 41 years old in a rented room above a hardware store in a town called Shawano, with a biology degree she could not use because every lab job required relocation or referral she no longer had. She was looking for temporary work when she met Dennis Talbot at a diner. He was complaining to the waitress about his cheese operation, how his father had left him a failing creamery, how he could not get the product consistent, how customers were starting to drift. Vera listened from the next booth and finally turned around. "You having trouble with your cultures?" Dennis looked at her like she had appeared from nowhere. "What do you know about cheese?" "I know microbiology. I know bacterial colonies. I know pH balance and temperature sensitivity and how living organisms respond to environment. If your cheese is inconsistent, it is because your process is inconsistent." Dennis stared at her. Then he hired her for 3 months. 3 months became 3 years. Vera rebuilt the entire production line from scratch. She tested milk sources, adjusted pasteurization temperatures, cultured new starter bacteria, tracked fermentation times down to the minute, logged every variable in notebooks she kept in a locked drawer, because every entry was a failure corrected, a lesson earned, a piece of knowledge that cost her sleep. Dennis handled sales and distribution. Vera handled everything that mattered. She worked 16-hour days. She missed holidays. She skipped meals. She fell asleep at the lab table more than once and woke with her face stuck to her notes. But the cheese got better. It got so good that people started driving 2 hours just to buy it. Restaurants called. A food critic from Chicago wrote about it. Dennis started wearing expensive shirts. "You are a miracle worker, Vera." He said it in front of customers, in front of staff, in front of his friends at the bar. "We are going to be rich." He never said partners. He never put her name on anything, but he said we, and she believed him. The state dairy competition changed everything. Dennis entered their aged cheddar, the one Vera had spent 18 months perfecting, adjusting salt ratios and aging humidity until it had that sharp, crystalline bite that made people close their eyes when they tasted it. When they won, Dennis went to the ceremony alone. Vera stayed at the creamery because someone had to supervise the evening batch. He came back with the trophy and a woman. "This is Colleen, my fiancée, new investor in the business." Vera was washing down the pressing table. She straightened slowly. "Investor?" Dennis set the trophy on the shelf. "She bought a 30% stake. We are expanding." Vera looked at Colleen. Colleen looked back with a smile that was friendly and final at the same time. "And me?" Vera asked. "You stay on as head cheesemaker." Dennis said it like it was obvious. "Salary and benefits. This is a real company now. We need structure." Vera felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Dennis, I built this. You helped build it." He corrected her gently, like she was confused. "The business is mine. The recipes are registered under my name. I own the facility. You have been paid fairly for your work." "Fairly?" Vera repeated the word. "Dennis, I have been here 6 days a week for 3 years. I created those recipes. You watched me create them. I watched you execute my vision." He said it without anger, without cruelty, just stating a fact. That does not make you an owner. Colleen stepped forward. Her voice was kind, reasonable. "Vera, ownership requires capital or equity agreements. Do you have a contract that says you own part of this business?" Vera did not. "Do you have documentation showing equity investment?" Vera did not. "Then you are an employee, a valued employee, but an employee." The word landed like a sentencing. Vera stood there holding a wet rag, hands that smelled like curd and brine, 11 years older than when she started. No savings, no fallback, no proof. She had trusted Dennis the same way she had trusted her ex-husband, the same way she had trusted the lab that laid her off, the same way she kept trusting people who saw her work and not her worth. "I built this." Her voice cracked. "You helped," Dennis repeated. Then he handed her an envelope. "We are restructuring. This is 2 weeks' notice and severance, 1 month pay. It is generous." Vera opened the envelope. The letter was already signed. She looked at the date. He had written it 3 days before the competition, before he even knew if they would win. He had planned this. "You knew." She said it quietly. Dennis shrugged. "Business is business, Vera. I need someone I can build a future with." He looked at Colleen when he said it. Vera folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. She set it on the pressing table. Then she walked to the storage room and started packing her things. Her lab coat, her notebooks, a mug someone had given her at Christmas. Dennis followed her. "The notebooks stay. Those are production records, company property." He pulled them from her hands. Vera did not fight. She let him take them. She had memorized most of it anyway. She kept packing. There was not much. A spare pair of boots, a sweatshirt, a photo of her and the morning crew from 2 years ago, back when they still smiled. At the back of the storage room, shoved behind a broken pallet, were 4 old curing boards, maple, dark with age, worn smooth. They were the original boards she had used when she first started, before Dennis bought the stainless steel racks. She ran her hand over the surface, felt the grain, the slight tackiness of residual fat, the faint smell of culture that never fully washed out. She picked them up. Dennis was watching from the doorway. "You want those?" Vera nodded. He laughed. "Take them. They are garbage anyway." She carried the boards to her truck, set them carefully in the bed, and covered them with the tarp she kept for hauling firewood. Then she got in, started the engine, and drove. She did not cry until she got back to her rented room. Then she sat on the floor with her back against the bed and cried until her ribs hurt. Not because Dennis had lied, not because Colleen had taken her place, but because she had done it again. She had given everything and kept nothing. She had built someone else's dream and called it partnership. She looked at the boards, leaning against the wall, dark and scarred and forgotten. Then she stood up. She wiped her face. She opened her laptop and started searching for commercial kitchen rentals. 3 weeks later, she was in a rented space in a town called Appleton, an hour south, a place with a 2-burner stove, a walk-in cooler, and a landlord who accepted payment on the 15th instead of the 1st. She bought 2 used vats from a creamery going out of business, got milk from a small dairy that agreed to invoice her monthly, and set the boards on a stainless steel rack she built herself from parts she bought at a salvage yard. The first batch came out wrong, too soft. The texture was off, not bad, just not right. She stood in the cooler at 2 in the morning, alone, staring at 30 pounds of mediocre cheese, and felt the same cold panic she had felt the night her ex-husband told her he was leaving. She wanted to call Dennis, not to apologize, not to beg, just to hear someone say she was not crazy. She dialed halfway and hung up. Then she sat on the cooler floor, cried for 10 minutes, got up, pulled out a new notebook, and wrote down every variable she could remember. Temperature, humidity, time, milk source, culture batch. The second batch was better. The third was right. When she tasted it, the sharpness, the crystalline bite, the faint nuttiness that came from months of patient aging, she sat down on the floor and cried again. But this time it was different. It was not despair, it was recognition. She had done it. Not for Dennis, for herself. She started selling at farmers' markets under the name Hollins Creamery. No awards, no press, no reputation, just cheese. People tasted it and came back. They brought friends. They asked for more. "This tastes like something I had once and could never find again," one woman said. Vera smiled. "It has a history. 3 months in, a customer told her she used to buy cheese from Talbot Creamery, but it was not the same anymore. They changed something. It does not taste right." Vera did not respond. She just wrapped the woman's order and thanked her. But she heard it again and again. Dennis had kept the recipe. He had kept the equipment. He had kept the schedule. But the cheese was different. Customers noticed. Restaurants dropped him. The grocery chain that had been negotiating a contract pulled out. Dennis called her once, 6 months after she left. "Vera, we need to talk." She was in the middle of turning a batch. She put him on speaker. "What do you need, Dennis? I want you to come back, consultant rate. We will pay you well." "Why?" "The product is not consistent. I do not know what I am missing." Vera kept stirring. "You are missing the part I took with me. I gave you the recipe. You gave me words on paper. The recipe was never the recipe, Dennis. It was the process, the cultures, the boards. The boards." He sounded confused. "You took garbage. Those boards carried 11 years of culture. Every bacteria that made that cheese what it was lived in that wood. You can buy new boards, new cultures, new equipment, but you cannot buy time. You cannot buy the specific environment that made that cheese work. You threw it in the dumpster and told me it was junk." Silence on the line. "Then Vera, please, I am losing everything." Colleen left. "The accounts are empty. I need help." Vera stopped stirring. She dried her hands slowly. "Dennis, I gave you 3 years. I gave you my knowledge, my time, my work. You told me I helped. You told me I was an employee. Now you are losing everything and you need me again." He waited. She could hear him breathing. "No." "What?" "No. I'm not coming back. You cannot do this on your own. I know I cannot. That is why I am asking." Vera picked up the phone, took him off speaker. "You are asking because you need me. I left because you did not value me. Those are not the same thing. Vera, I am sorry. I know I was wrong. I will make you a partner. Real equity, 40%. She laughed. A real bitter laugh. 40% of a failing business. How generous. Please. She hung up. He called back twice. She did not answer. A year later, Hollins Creamery won the state competition. Vera went to the ceremony in jeans and a clean shirt, no makeup, no performance. When they called her name, she walked to the stage alone. She accepted the trophy, looked at the crowd, and saw Dennis in the back row. He looked smaller, thinner. She spoke into the microphone. "I want to thank the 4 boards someone told me were garbage. I want to thank the 11 years someone told me were just helping, and I want to thank everyone who taught me that ownership is not about whose name is on the paper." She looked at Dennis. "It is about who does the work." The crowd stood. Dennis left before the applause finished. 2 weeks later he showed up at her kitchen. Vera was pressing curds. She did not stop when he walked in. "I sold the creamery." He said it quietly. "Bankruptcy, lost everything. I came to say I am sorry." Vera kept pressing. And I was wrong. I used you. I took your work and called it mine. I thought ownership was legal. I did not understand it was something else." Vera set down the press. She looked at him for a long time. What do you want me to say, Dennis? I want you to forgive me. She wiped her hands on her apron. I do not forgive you, but I do not think about you anymore. That is better than forgiveness. It is indifference. He nodded slowly. Then he left. 3 years later, Hollins Creamery operates in a facility Vera owns outright. She has 8 employees, all with contracts, all with profit sharing, all with their names on the door. Her cheese is sold in 6 states. She has won 2 national awards. A chef in Madison uses her cheddar exclusively and credits her by name on the menu. Dennis moved to Minnesota. Last she heard, he was managing a grocery store. She does not think about him often. When she does, she feels nothing. Not anger, not pity, nothing. The best revenge was not watching him fall. It was watching herself rise. The boards are still in use, darker now, richer, holding more than a decade of memory. She refuses to retire them. New employees ask why she does not use stainless steel like everyone else. She runs her hand over the wood. Because these boards are not tools, they are proof. Proof that the real recipe was never on paper. It was in time, in patience, in the living cultures that grow when you care enough to let them. You can steal a name, steal a business, steal credit, but you cannot steal knowledge that lives in your hands. Talent does not transfer on documents. It transfers when you show up every day and do the work no one else will do. And I did that work. Not for him, for me. If this story made you think of someone who built something and got nothing, share it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever walked away from something you built and had to start over? Because I did, and what I carried with me was worth more than anything I left behind. See you in the next one.